I guess I should start by giving you a bit of background. My name is Steve, and I've been married to Melissa for 5 years. On the surface, our life together appeared pretty picture perfect. We had the big house, the dog, and even a couple of kids. But lately, things felt a bit off. I noticed small changes in Melissa's behavior. She was more secretive, often glued to her phone, and always seemed a bit distracted. In retrospect, these were the first cracks in the facade of our so-called perfect life. It started small. I'd come home from work and find her scrolling through her phone, a sly smile creeping across her face. When I'd ask her about it, she'd brush it off, claiming she was just chatting with her friends. I told myself that I was being paranoid. After all, who would suspect their partner of cheating? But the nagging feeling wouldn't go away. I'd catch her deleting messages, and she'd often need to run errands when I didn't have anything planned. I didn't want to jump to conclusions, but with every passing day, I found myself more and more uneasy. Then came the day that shattered my world. It was a Saturday afternoon. I was cleaning up around the house when I noticed Melissa's phone buzzing incessantly on the kitchen counter. It was a text from a number I didn't recognize. I picked it up against my better judgment, and my heart sank as I read the message. "Can't wait to see you later, babe. I've missed our time together." I felt like I'd been punched in the gut. I couldn't believe it. All those little signs I had brushed off suddenly clicked into place. I didn't know what to do next. Should I confront her right then and there? Or should I gather more evidence first? My mind was racing, and every second felt like an eternity. I decided to play it cool and wait for her to come home. I wanted to hear her side of the story because, honestly, I was hoping there was some kind of mistake. When she walked through the door, I acted normal, but inside, I was a mess. I asked her how her day went and made small talk to keep things light. But I was dying to confront her, and I finally found the courage to do it. "Hey, Mel, I found a strange text on your phone earlier. Who's babe?" She froze, her smile fading instantly. "What are you talking about?" She shot back, her voice dripping with that familiar defensive tone. I held my breath, waiting for her to either confess or come up with a lie. "I don't know what you mean. Maybe it was a spam message or something," she said, brushing it off like it was nothing. I could feel the anger bubbling up inside of me. "A spam message? Really? That's the best you've got?" I could see her thinking on her feet, trying to fabricate a story that would convince me. But in that moment, I couldn't look past the betrayal that was hanging in the air between us. "Steve, you're imagining things. I've been busy with work and I'm stressed out," she replied, a hint of panic creeping into her voice. It was a classic deflection, and I wasn't buying it. I pressed her further, demanding the truth. Finally, the facade began to crack. "Fine. I've been talking to someone, but it's not what you think." She stammered, her composure slipping away. That moment felt surreal. It was like time stopped and every word hung heavily in the air. I was filled with disbelief, anger, and a sense of betrayal I'd never known. How could she do this? I thought we had something real. But here I was, standing in the kitchen, confronting my wife about her affair. The confrontation spiraled out of control. Melissa started to yell, accusing me of not being present in our marriage, of not understanding her needs. Her words cut even deeper. I had tried to be a good husband, but all it took was one moment of weakness for her to throw it all back in my face. The emotional toll was suffocating. As I stood there, reeling from her words, I began to feel an unsettling mix of sadness and rage. How could I have missed all these signs? How could I have trusted her so completely? I needed to take a step back, to breathe, and to think about where to go from here. The emotional impact of the moment was overwhelming. I felt betrayed, lost, and angry. My mind raced with thoughts of what I could do next. I needed to decide how to move forward. It's betrayal. It felt like my whole world had come crashing down around me, and I was struggling to find a way to pick up the pieces. What I did know was that I couldn't let this slide. I had to confront my reality, and I had to think carefully about my next steps. The road ahead was going to be painful, but I couldn't allow myself to be a victim in this situation. I had to reclaim my narrative. I started thinking about how to navigate this mess. Revenge, confrontation, understanding. I didn't know yet, but I would find out soon. I just needed to process everything that was happening and figure out my next move. In the days that followed the confrontation, I was a man possessed. I couldn't eat, sleep, or focus on anything. My mind replayed that moment over and over, like a broken record. Every cruel word from Melissa echoed in my head, and all I could think about was how I could make sense of this chaos. The truth was brutal, and the reality of our marriage felt like it was crumbling around me. I had trusted her completely, and now I was left questioning everything. I decided I needed proof. I wanted to know exactly what was going on, so I began to dig deeper. I felt a mix of guilt and determination as I retraced her steps. I started with her social media accounts. I had seen her scrolling through Instagram more and more, and I wondered if that was where all the secrecy was hiding. So one night while she was in the shower, I picked up her phone from the kitchen counter. My heart raced as I unlocked it. I knew it was wrong, but I had to know. I quickly opened her Instagram app and scrolled through her feed. Most of it was the usual stuff, pictures of our kids, the dog, and those seemingly innocent selfies she loved to post. But then I found something that made my stomach drop. There, among the typical posts, was a private account that I had never seen before. The profile was set to private, but there were messages that I could see, flirty comments, heart emojis, and inside jokes that I didn't understand. I felt nauseous. She had a whole other world that I was completely unaware of, and that thought was suffocating. I couldn't believe what I was seeing. Was she really leading a double life? I needed to confront her again, but this time I wanted to have the upper hand. I planned my next move carefully, knowing that I wanted to expose her, not just confront her. I felt a mix of vindication and anger bubbling inside me, and I began to think about how I could use this to my advantage. With renewed vigor, I started gathering evidence. I set a trap for her. I created an anonymous Instagram account and began to follow her secret account. At first, she didn't notice, and I watched as she posted more and more content, often with other men. Each picture felt like another dagger in my heart. I was witnessing the lies unfold in real time, and it made me feel incredibly powerless. The more I watched, the more I realized I wasn't just dealing with infidelity. I was dealing with a deeper betrayal of trust. Melissa was not just having an affair, she was living a life filled with deceit. I couldn't let her get away with this. I wanted her to feel the weight of her actions. The of revenge began to take root in my mind. I stayed up late researching how to expose someone's infidelity without them knowing it was you. Instagram exposés were becoming a trend, and the thought of going public with Melissa's betrayals intrigued me. I imagined a YouTube video outlining my findings, complete with screenshots and messages, showing the world who she really was. It felt empowering in a way, like I would reclaim control over my own narrative. Then it hit me. I would make it a production. I wanted to show her exactly what she was doing. I wanted her to understand the consequences of her actions, not just for me but for her as well. I figured the more I revealed, the more it would hurt her. I started drafting a script for my video, detailing her lies, her secret Instagram, everything I had found. It became a cathartic process for me, almost like therapeutic writing. In the midst of my planning, I decided to confront her again. I wanted her to know that I had been watching her, that I was aware of her lies. I was no longer the oblivious husband. I was a man on a mission. I planned to drop the bombshell while we were having dinner together just to see the shock on her face when I revealed my hand. The night came and I set the stage. I made a nice dinner, poured us both some wine, and kept my demeanor calm. Melissa walked in, looking as though nothing was wrong in her world. I could feel the tension building in my chest, but I masked it with a forced smile. "Hey, honey," she said, oblivious. "Hey," I replied, trying to keep my voice steady. "I've been thinking about us, about everything that's been going on." Her smile faltered slightly, but she quickly recovered. "What do you mean?" I took a deep breath, feeling a surge of adrenaline course through me. "I know about your Instagram account, Melissa. I know about the messages. I've been watching you." Her expression shifted from confusion to fear as the gravity of my words sank in. What are you talking about?" she stammered, her eyes darting around, searching for an escape. "Don't play dumb with me. I've seen everything. The flirty comments, the secret messages. I've been collecting evidence." I said, my voice steady now. Her face went pale and I could see the realization wash over her. "You went through my phone?" she asked, disbelief etched on her features. "You left it sitting there, didn't you? "This is your fault," I replied, feeling the anger boil beneath the surface. "You had no right to betray me like this." The emotional impact was immense. I could see her panic, the way her composure was slipping away. The woman I had loved was unraveling before my eyes, and it felt strangely empowering. I knew I was taking charge of my story now, and while I still felt deep hurt, a part of me began to feel that sweet taste of revenge. In that moment, I resolved to go through with my plan. I would expose her, and I would let everyone see the truth. This was going to be my chance to reclaim my voice. I could feel the gears in my head turning, and I was ready to show Melissa the consequences of her actions. That night would be the catalyst for everything that was about to unfold. I was ready to take back my life. After the confrontation, things felt chaotic in our home. Melissa was a whirlwind of emotions: denial, anger, desperation. She tried to play it off like I was being paranoid, but I could see the cracks in her facade. I had hit a nerve, and it was clear she was terrified of what I might do with the information I had gathered. I watched her as she paced around the living room, trying to figure out how to manipulate the situation back in her favor. "Steve, you have to understand," she pleaded, her voice shaky. "It was just a fling, it didn't mean anything." Those words cut deep. "A fling? You're calling it a fling? You've been living a lie. This isn't just some casual thing, it's an emotional affair." I fired back, my heart racing. The betrayal burned in my chest, and I wanted her to understand the weight of her actions. She took a step forward, her eyes pleading. "I was feeling neglected. I thought you didn't want me anymore. I needed someone to talk to. I was there for you, I've always been there." I shouted, feeling the anger boil over again. It was evident that she had no intention of taking responsibility. I realized that I couldn't trust her words anymore. The lies had become so tangled that I couldn't see the truth. As the argument intensified, I made a decision. I wasn't going to let her exit this situation without consequences. I wanted her to understand that actions have repercussions, and I was ready to make that clear. I had already started formulating my plan for the expose, and the anger coursing through me made it even more enticing. I spent the next few days gathering all the evidence I could find. I screenshotted her flirty messages and saved all the Instagram posts. Each one added fuel to the fire of my resolve. I felt a dark satisfaction in documenting everything. This would be my chance to shine a light on the truth and show the world who she really was. I began scripting out my YouTube video, detailing the timeline of our marriage and the changes I'd noticed. I wanted to portray the betrayal honestly, but I also wanted to emphasize how I had tried to be a good husband. I wrote about the late nights, the suspicious behavior, the way she had manipulated me into questioning my own sanity. It felt cathartic to express my feelings so openly, almost like a therapy session unfolding in front of my computer screen. As I delved deeper into my project, I started considering how I would share it. Should I go live to confront her directly during the video? Or should I just post it and let it spread like wildfire? I realized I wanted the latter. I wanted her to see the reactions of others, to understand the impact of her betrayal not just on me but on everyone around us. On the day I finally decided to film, I was a bundle of nerves. I set up my camera in our living room, trying to create an inviting atmosphere despite the tension that hung in the air. I felt like I was preparing to go to battle, armed with my phone and the truth. When I pressed record, I took a deep breath and began. "Hey everyone, my name is Steve, and today I'm here to share a story about betrayal, trust, and the impact of infidelity on a relationship." My voice trembled slightly, a mix of fear and anger coursing through me. I didn't want to cry on camera, but the emotions were raw and I struggled to keep it together. As I shared the details, I couldn't help but feel a sense of relief. I laid out everything: how I discovered Melissa's affair, the messages, the lies, and the emotional toll it took on me. I was candid and honest, wanting to connect with anyone who might be in a similar situation. I wanted them to know they weren't alone, that there were consequences for betrayal. As I spoke, I could see the reality of my situation taking shape. I felt empowered, like I was finally taking back control, but I also knew I was risking a lot by putting my life on display. I was exposing our private struggles to the world, and I couldn't help but wonder how Melissa would react when she saw it. Would she be enraged? Would she try to turn it back on me? I finished recording, my heart racing. I edited the video, adding screenshots and clips from her Instagram, highlighting the messages I had found. I made sure to keep it respectful, no name-calling or slander. I wanted the truth to speak for itself. It was a documentary of my pain, and I hoped it would resonate with others who had faced similar betrayal. When I finally uploaded the video, I sat back and stared at the screen, waiting for the views to trickle in. Anxiety crept over me. What if it backfired? What if Melissa retaliated? But deep down, I felt a sense of liberation. I was no longer the victim hiding in the dark. I was stepping into the light. The moment I hit publish, a weight lifted off my shoulders. It was done. I had put my truth out there for the world to see. I didn't know what would come next, but I knew I was ready to face the consequences, whatever they may be. The emotional turmoil of the past weeks had transformed into something tangible, something I could share with others. I was done being a silent sufferer. Now, I was a voice for those who had felt the same pain. As the notifications began to roll in, my heart raced. Comments started flooding in. Some were supportive, others were critical, but I didn't care. I had shared my truth, and that felt like a victory in itself. I was ready to face whatever came next. The fallout from my Expos video came quicker than I anticipated. Within hours, the comments were pouring in, and my phone was vibrating non-stop with notifications. Some people supported me, sharing their own stories of betrayal and heartbreak, while others attacked me for airing my dirty laundry. I braced myself for the inevitable response from Melissa, which I knew would be explosive. That evening, as I sat scrolling through the comments, I heard the front door slam. My heart sank as Melissa stormed into the living room, her face set in a mask of fury. "What the hell did you do, Steve?" she shouted, her voice dripping with anger. I tried to keep my composure. "I exposed the truth, Melissa. You had me living a lie for months," I replied, trying to sound calm amidst the chaos. She didn't let me finish. "You think you can just go public with our problems? Do you realize how humiliating this is for me, for our kids?" She was seething, her hands shaking as she paced back and forth. "Humiliating? You're the one who's been cheating. You made this choice," I shot back, my own anger bubbling to the surface. "I'm not going to let you spin this into something I'm responsible for. This is on you." She stopped abruptly and pointed a finger at me. "You think this is going to help you? You're just making things worse. You're going to regret this." Her voice cracked slightly, and for the first time I saw a flicker of fear behind her anger. "That's not my concern anymore, Melissa. You've destroyed my trust, and I'm finally standing up for myself," I said, feeling a surge of defiance. She took a step closer, her tone shifting to something almost pleading. "Steve, you don't understand. I was lonely. I was trying to make things work, but you were always so focused on work and the kids. I didn't mean to hurt you." I shook my head, feeling the familiar anger rising again. Her excuses weren't going to cut it. "You didn't try to talk to me about it. You went behind my back. You don't get to rewrite this narrative. You made your choices." The argument escalated, and I could feel the tension crackling between us. Melissa threw her hands up in frustration. "You're ruining everything. You think you're some kind of hero for exposing me, but you're just making things worse for everyone." She was on the verge of tears, and a part of me felt sorry for her, but I quickly pushed that thought aside. "Maybe it's time you face the consequences of your actions," I replied, my voice steady. "You thought you could do this without repercussions, but here we are. You wanted to play a game, and now the world knows the rules." As the night went on, we continued to argue, but I could see the desperation in her eyes. Deep down, I wondered if this was a cry for help or just another manipulation tactic. I was done trying to decipher her motives. The next day, I woke up to even more chaos. My video had gone viral. The views were skyrocketing, and I was getting messages from people who wanted to share their own stories, asking for advice. It was overwhelming, but also validating. I had taken a stand, and people were responding to it, but with the newfound attention came backlash. I started receiving messages from friends and family who had seen the video. Some were supportive, but others were uncomfortable with my public airing of grievances. I understood their concerns. I had put my entire life on display, and that made for awkward conversations. I was at a coffee shop when I received a message from my brother, Mark. "Dude, what's going on? I just saw the video. You know you're airing your dirty laundry, right?" I sighed and texted back. "I know, but I couldn't just sit back and let her get away with it. I had to do something." "Just be careful, man. You're not just hurting her, you're hurting your kids too. They're going to hear about this," he warned. His words hit me hard. I had been so consumed with my own pain that I hadn't fully considered the impact on our children. I needed to tread carefully. Melissa had been quiet since our explosive argument, and I was beginning to wonder if she was plotting her next move. I couldn't shake the feeling that she wouldn't let me control this narrative for long. Sure enough, the following week, I received a call from a local news station. They wanted to do an interview about my experience. It was tempting. Part of me thought about using the media to further expose Melissa, to make sure everyone knew the truth, but another part of me hesitated. I didn't want to drag my kids into this any further. I consulted a few friends who had gone through similar situations. "If you go public with this, you need to think about the long-term consequences. Will it make you feel better in the short term but hurt your family in the long run?" one of my friends cautioned. I realized I needed to consider the bigger picture. I didn't want to ruin my kids' lives over my own vendetta. I decided to turn down the interview, but I still wanted to share my truth in a way that didn't destroy everything we had built together. That evening, I sat down with Melissa, ready to have a serious conversation. "We need to talk about where we go from here," I said, my tone calm but firm. "What's there to talk about? You've exposed me, and now we're both stuck in this mess," she replied, folding her arms defensively. "No, we need to figure out how to co-parent effectively, how to move forward for the sake of the kids," I said, trying to keep my emotions in check. "We need to stop fighting and start thinking about their future." She looked at me, vulnerability creeping into her expression. "I know I messed up, Steve. I never wanted to hurt you or the kids. I was just so lost." I saw a glimmer of the woman I had married, and I recognized that we were both drowning in this mess. "Maybe we can find a way to work together. We can't keep this animosity going. It won't help anyone," I said, taking a deep breath. It was a tentative step in the right direction, but I knew it was just the beginning. The road ahead was filled with uncertainty, but I was willing to try for the kids' sake. I was learning that sometimes, even in the depths of betrayal, there was a chance for healing, if we both chose to embrace it. As I looked at Melissa, I realized that while the pain of her betrayal still lingered, there was a flicker of hope on the horizon. I wasn't sure what the future held, but I was ready to face it head-on. I just needed to remain focused on what mattered most: our family. The days following my decision to focus on co-parenting were filled with a strange mix of tension and tentative cooperation. Melissa and I had agreed to put our differences aside for the sake of our kids, but the emotional scars from her betrayal still lingered in the air between us. It felt like walking on a tightrope, trying to balance the desire for revenge against the need to remain civil. We started having regular discussions about the kids, setting schedules for pickups and drop-offs. Surprisingly, these meetings were less confrontational than I had expected. We spoke about school activities, their friends, and what they needed from us as parents. It was during one of these conversations that I noticed a small shift in Melissa. She seemed more engaged, as if she were trying to rekindle some semblance of the partnership we once had. One evening, after a particularly productive meeting about our son's upcoming soccer tournament, I found myself feeling more hopeful. "You know, Melissa, I really appreciate how you're stepping up. It means a lot to the kids, and to me," I said, genuinely trying to bridge the gap. She looked surprised, almost uncomfortable, but I could see a flicker of relief in her eyes. "Thanks, Steve. I know I messed up, but I really do want to make things better." But as the days turned into weeks, I also noticed Melissa slipping back into her old patterns. She would still spend hours on her phone, and there were times when I'd catch her looking distracted or distant. I couldn't shake the feeling that she was still hiding something, and it made my blood boil. The betrayal had left me with a heightened sense of vigilance, and I couldn't ignore the instinct that told me something was off. One Friday night after the kids had gone to bed, I decided to confront her again. "You've been acting strange lately. Are you still in touch with that guy from Instagram?" I asked, trying to sound calm while my heart raced. She looked taken aback. "What? No, we talked about this, Steve. I told you it was over." Her eyes widened, but I could see the flicker of something behind her facade. "Then why do I feel like you're lying to me?" I pressed, my voice steady despite the turmoil inside. "I'm trying to be civil here, but you need to give me something to work with." Melissa's expression shifted, and I could see her defenses rising. "You're being paranoid. I'm trying to move on from this. It's hard enough as it is." "Then prove it," I shot back, frustration boiling over. "If you really want to make this work for the kids, then you need to stop hiding things from me." The tension in the room grew thick, and for a moment I thought she would explode. Instead, she turned away, her shoulders slumping. "I don't know how to prove anything to you, Steve. You've already made your choice. You put our lives on display for everyone to see." I felt the weight of her words. It was true. I had exposed our private struggles to the world, but I had done it out of desperation and pain. "I know I messed up too, but I can't trust you if I don't know what's going on. We need to be honest with each other." She sighed, rubbing her temples as if the conversation was giving her a headache. "Fine, I'll try, but I can't promise anything." That night, I went to bed feeling conflicted. I wanted to believe that we could rebuild our relationship, but trust was a fragile thing. How could I move forward when I still had so many unanswered questions? As the weeks passed, I tried to focus on my healing. I'd started exercising more, spending time with friends, and even seeing a therapist to help me navigate the emotional fallout from the betrayal. I was determined to reclaim my life and not let Melissa's actions define me. But just when I thought things were settling down, I received a message that turned my world upside down again. It was from a mutual friend of ours, Jenna. "Hey, have you talked to Melissa lately? She's been acting really strange. I think you need to know what's going on." My heart raced as I read her message. "What do you mean?" I replied, my stomach knotting with anxiety. "She's been meeting up with that guy again. I saw them together last week. They looked too cozy," Jenna responded. And I felt my blood run cold. The feeling of betrayal washed over me again, sharper this time. After everything we'd been through, how could she do this? I felt like an absolute fool for trusting her. My mind raced with thoughts of revenge again, but this time it felt different. I wasn't just angry, I was devastated. I didn't want to confront her immediately. I needed to gather more evidence. My heart ached with the realization that the fragile progress we had made was about to shatter. Over the next few days, I kept my distance, trying to observe her behavior without being confrontational. I knew I had to be strategic about my next move. It wasn't long before I noticed changes in her routine again. She had been spending late nights at work, often returning home after the kids were asleep. I couldn't shake the feeling that she was seeing him again, and it made my blood boil. I felt like I was stuck in this vicious cycle of trust and betrayal, and my resolve began to harden. One evening, I decided to follow her. I felt guilty about it, like I was invading her privacy, but I needed to know the truth. I waited until she left for another work meeting and jumped in my car. My heart raced as I followed her to a restaurant across town. When I got there, I saw her parked outside, nervously looking around. I parked a little distance away, heart pounding as I watched her walk into the restaurant. My stomach twisted as I sat there, knowing that whatever I saw would change everything. A few moments later, a man walked in, and my worst fears were confirmed. It was him, the guy from her secret Instagram. I felt like I had been punched in the gut. They sat at a table in the corner, leaning in close, laughing, sharing food. I wanted to storm in there and confront them both, but a voice inside me urged me to stay put. I needed to gather proof, to document this betrayal that felt like a kick to the gut. I pulled out my phone and discreetly snapped a few pictures, my hands trembling as I captured the moment. My heart raced, a mix of fury and sadness swirling inside me. I couldn't believe this was happening again. I had given her a chance to prove herself, and she had thrown it away just like that. As I drove home that night, I wrestled with my emotions. I felt a resurgence of anger, but it was deeper than that. I felt deeply hurt, betrayed in a way I never thought possible. I had thought we were on the path to healing, and now it felt like we were back at square one. I knew I needed to confront her again, but this time would be different. I had the evidence, and I would make sure she understood the gravity of her actions. I was done being the victim in this story. I was ready to take control and fight back. The road ahead was uncertain, but I felt a surge of determination. I would not let her betrayal define me. I had to reclaim my narrative, and this time I wouldn't back down. The following day was tense, filled with an undercurrent of dread and anticipation. I couldn't shake the images of Melissa and that man from my mind. My stomach churned with anger and betrayal, but I knew that I had to confront her again. I couldn't keep living in this limbo, pretending like everything was fine while she was lying to my face. I needed to know the truth, and I was prepared to make her face the consequences of her actions. That afternoon, when she returned home from work, I asked her to sit down. I could see the anxiety flicker across her face, but she sat down across from me at the kitchen table. "What's going on, Steve?" she asked, her voice tinged with apprehension. I took a deep breath, knowing that the moment of truth had arrived. "I know, Melissa. I know you've been seeing him again. I followed you yesterday," I said, trying to keep my voice steady despite the turmoil inside me. Her face went pale, and for a moment I thought I saw a flicker of guilt in her eyes. "What are you talking about?" she stammered, but I wasn't buying it anymore. "I saw you with him at the restaurant. I have pictures. You can't lie your way out of this one," I said, pulling out my phone and showing her the damning evidence. Her expression shifted from confusion to panic as she scanned the photos. "Steve, please, let me explain," she began, but I cut her off. "No, you don't get to explain. You've had your chances and you've thrown them all away. This is the second time I've caught you, and I'm done with your lies," I said, feeling a mix of anger and sorrow flooding through me. "What do you want from me? I didn't want this to happen. I've been trying to make things better," she pleaded, her voice rising in desperation. I took a deep breath, feeling the weight of the moment. "You made your choice, Melissa. You chose to betray my trust, and now you have to deal with the consequences. I can't keep pretending that everything is okay between us. We're done." Her eyes widened as she processed what I was saying, and I could see the realization hitting her hard. "You can't be serious. We have kids. We can work through this," she insisted, but I shook my head. "No, we can't. I've tried to make this work for their sake, but you've made it impossible. I need to protect myself and our children from this toxic environment. I can't keep living like this. This isn't what I want for my life," I said, my voice steady as I laid the truth bare. Tears filled her eyes, and for a moment I felt a pang of sympathy, but I quickly pushed that aside. I had given her chance after chance, and I couldn't allow myself to be swayed by her tears anymore. "Steve, please, I'll do anything to fix this. I'll go to therapy, I'll cut him out of my life, just don't leave," she cried, desperation leaking into her voice. I took a moment to gather my thoughts. "It's not just about the man. It's about the trust that's been shattered. You've broken something between us that can't be repaired. I need to prioritize my mental health and my children's well-being. I deserve more than this constant betrayal." Her sobs filled the room, but I felt a sense of clarity wash over me. I had spent too long being manipulated and hurt. It was time to take a stand for myself and for the future I wanted to build. "I'm going to file for separation, Melissa. I can't keep living like this," I said firmly, knowing that this was the hardest decision I had ever made, but it felt right. It was the only way forward. The aftermath of our confrontation was emotionally charged. Melissa didn't respond with anger. Instead, she fell into a deep sadness, and I could see the realization of the consequences of her choices settling in. Over the next few weeks, we moved through the separation process. I focused on co-parenting, ensuring that our children still felt loved and supported during this upheaval. Melissa and I maintained a business-like relationship as we navigated the logistics of our shared lives. I spent time processing my feelings and reconnecting with friends and family. I had lost sight of myself amid the betrayal, but I was starting to reclaim my identity. I joined a support group for those dealing with infidelity, and it helped me find strength in sharing my story and hearing others' experiences. As the dust settled, I found a renewed sense of purpose. I began to prioritize my mental health, taking up hobbies I had neglected and focusing on self-care. I even sought therapy, where I could openly discuss my feelings and work through the pain of betrayal. Reflecting on the entire experience, I learned valuable lessons about trust and the importance of communication in relationships. I realized that I had been too willing to overlook signs of trouble, hoping things would get better on their own. I also learned that healing takes time, and it's okay to prioritize my own well-being. It's easy to get lost in emotions, but I understood that I needed to stand up for myself, even when it meant making difficult decisions. As I moved forward, I embraced the opportunity to start anew. I was no longer a victim of betrayal. I was a survivor, ready to take control of my life and create a future that brought me happiness. Though the scars would remain, I knew they would serve as reminders of my journey and the strength I had found within myself. In the end, I learned that while betrayal can shatter trust, it can also lead to self-discovery and resilience. And while the road ahead might be uncertain, I was no longer afraid to walk it alone. I was ready to embrace whatever came next, knowing I had the strength to overcome anything life threw my way.